unleashing female power.
Being a disruptor.
I'm always constantly telling the truth.
I love
art. That's all her life.
She's alive and female.
Being a woman, what it meant.
Prove him wrong.
Girls run the world.
We're rocking the place.
Welcome to the Art Pod. I'm your host, Carolina, and I'll be your guide through this Pandora's box. Strap yourselves in for a journey through the art world where we bring you candid conversations, untold stories, uncover industry secrets, and celebrate the women who are shaping its future. Because in the Art Pod, the spotlight is always on the girls. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Art Pod, where I speak with women charting their own paths and doing amazing things in the arts. My guest today is Gabriella Perez. Welcome.
Hello.
So just a little bit about Gabriella. Gabriella is an experienced registrar dedicated to the logistical management and care of post-war and contemporary art. Her expertise lies in cataloging, loan agreements, condition reporting, and exhibition installations, as well as safe handling, packing, and storage of objects. She has managed complex installations and international shipping projects. She joined Pace Gallery as a senior registrar in 2021. Gabriella is also an independent fine art appraiser, specializing in post-war, contemporary, and emerging art, with an in-depth understanding of the primary and secondary markets. She prepares professional, qualified reports for insurance, charitable donations, and estate tax liability purposes. She's an accredited member of the Appraisers Association of America and USPAP compliant through January 2026. She holds a BA from the American University of Paris and an MA from the Institute of Fine Arts, NYU, both in art history, and a certificate in appraisal studies from NYU. Gabriella is a member of the Alumni Association Board of the Institute of Fine Arts, NYU, a member of the Association for Registrars and Collection Specialists, and an active volunteer with the Lower East Side Ecology Center.
Whew.
A lot.
Sounds like a lot.
Well, you're a busy woman, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
So me and you met while working for Magazino Italian Art. And then you started, I think, December 2016?
Yes. Yep. Right before, it was like 6 months before the museum opened.
Right.
In June 2017.
Yeah, and then you were doing the, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you did at Magazino, because like you said, you joined right before we opened, so there was a lot of work doing the initial installation for the permanent, collection now. Yeah. Take us on that journey.
Yeah.
Of your interview process and then your work there.
Sure. I left Michael Rosenfeld Gallery, and before I left, I was interviewing with Magazino, so it was perfect timing. Things were aligning. And I finally started in December 2016. And it was a really wild experience. I'm going to dive in straight into what it was like to start working at Magazino. My interviews there were a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Mysterious, because it hadn't been announced what this art space was.
Yeah.
So I remember my first interview with Vittorio, he was being very walled off.
Vague,
secretive about what really the project was. And that, I think the next day was the New York Times announcement of what the article space was. Yeah. So the second interview went much better, considering I could ask more questions and get real answers. Mm-hmm. But yes, so starting right away in December, it was really hitting the ground running with organizing the shipping of all the artworks that had been in storage temporarily in Italy. Once they arrived, it was condition checking everything to make sure everything was in exhibitable condition. Managing the insurance as well, getting everything properly insured while it was in this new space. The insurers had to come out and see the space, make sure that was approved. Working on loan agreements. It was also training new staff at the same time. I feel like I was one of the first people hired. You were first, probably, and then me, and then I remember when Thomas came on, who's the facilities manager and had prep there. that was all, hiring people at the same time. We were all learning at the same time too.
Yeah. Plus, it was a new space.
And it was a new space. Everything was brand new. So it was really a crash course in I don't know, just literally everything. And at the same time, this is like a one-time experience.
Yeah.
Once in a lifetime career experience. It's opening a museum. I mean, my God, like
who gets to do that?
It was unbelievable. So a really great experience. And that's what I mean in my intros, like managing complex installations. I mean, yeah,
Arte Povera, for those who might not be familiar with the artwork, is the artists use a lot of what's quote unquote poor materials, but it's like everyday materials. And there's a lot of huge sculptural work, especially with like Fabro, who has marble pieces that are gigantic. I know you were there for, I think, a festo when it was being hung, and that weighed like a ton or
several tons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And then the two column pieces, Fabro pieces in the back. Eos. Which I don't know how much I should say about that one, but that was a complex conservation project.
Do you work a lot with conservators?
Yes. Yep. That was that's actually one of my favorite parts of my job, is working with conservators, because I learned so much from them. I can assess the physical condition of an artwork, and if it needs treatment by a conservator, I can reach out to a network of conservators that I know who specialize in objects, paper, paintings, etc. So any media, and then more specifically, you can go, paintings on panel, paintings with this type of 1960s latex paint, etc., etc. Like, the conservator world is highly specialized, and it's really important for a registrar to know all the different specialties and who's the expert of XYZ area.
I feel like a lot of also knowledge that conservators have overlaps almost with registrars, because you do the condition reporting. So you're so familiar with different types of mediums that artists use. Exactly.
Yep. So I like to think the registrar is the expert in a collection. Why a collection was built in a certain way. And then what I mean by care in my bio is really caring for these objects in perpetuity. So if something does need conservation work, it's, reaching out to the conservator, but also documenting everything that the conservator did, having that on file, because in 15 years, if another thing happens, you're going to want to look back and say, okay, well, this is exactly, we've been through this before. These cracks are already existent. This isn't maybe an inherent problem, not something that happened overnight. So the record keeping that a registrar does as it relates to an object is really important. And we also manage, every place it goes, proper cataloging, having all of the correct files on record, so certificates of authenticity, insurance. That's really what I mean by caring for an object. Yeah.
So now you're like working on this huge installation for this new museum that's opening. Was this your first time doing such a huge project?
Yeah, it was. My previous job, I was doing more of the registrar work I was doing at my previous job at Michael Rosenfeld. It was really contracts. So, all agreements. But I was doing more research there. But my first job out of grad school was as a collection manager for a gallery that was actually shutting down, which was a really interesting experience. It was called CDS Gallery. The lady who started it.
Where was the gallery located?
It was on 79th Street for years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So Upper East Side.
Upper East Side. And then that had closed right before I started in 2013. And we had like a little office on the Lower East Side. But it was really interesting experience. The gallerist, Clara Sujo, was absolutely instrumental in bringing Latin American art to New York City. She'd run a gallery for years in Venezuela and moved to New York after having run the first Latin American auction with Sotheby's, and seeing this archive of incredible material, and she kept everything, was unbelievable. And then seeing important works that were in the inventory that she didn't want to sell, but then also the not so important works that nobody maybe wanted to buy. But what happens with all that material? And I was really hired to place the archive in an important institution and also sell off the important works, mostly at auction. So
yeah, I mean, I think for galleries, the most, critical part is always wanting your pieces or the artist be represented at a museum. So for a museum to buy those works,
yeah,
first and foremost,
absolutely.
And then obviously great collectors.
Yeah, and her archive ended up being placed at the Getty, which was amazing. And I was there for 2 years before moving on, but yeah, so her archive got placed at the Getty, and then important works got sold off at auction. And that was really interesting for me to see at the start of my career. And the reason I went and got my appraisal certificate was I came from a very academically rigorous background.
Yeah, so maybe let's backtrack a little bit and start with your grad school.
Yep.
And then go from there.
Yeah.
So you did your graduate studies
at the Institute of Fine Arts at NYU, which I found out about from my undergraduate program. The vast majority of my professors had done their PhDs at the Institute of Fine Arts. So I was familiar with it. And then it just made sense because I was interested in conservation, and the IFA has under one roof an art history program and conservation department, which is really excellent. My favorite classes in grad school were my conservation classes.
And you didn't want to be in conservation?
No, it's so much science that my brain does not work that way. Also, I don't want to be the one intervening on an artwork. I am fascinated by what they do. I want to know how and why they're doing it, but I don't want to be the one doing it.
Okay, fair
I don't
enough.
need to clean the painting. I just need to see that it's been cleaned.
I mean, when I look at the conservation efforts at the Met and larger institutions, and then I see these individuals working on cleaning or repairing a painting for months.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just meticulously little details. I'm just it's wild, but also it's also nerve-wracking.
I know,
because it's you make one mistake and then that's it.
Exactly. That's not for me. But I like being aware of, all of the new technologies and the different fields, et cetera. So that's the main reason I chose to do my graduate school at the IFA was
because your undergrad you did in Paris, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you were there for 4 years.
Yep.
How'd you like Paris?
I loved it. It's an 18-year-old from Texas, from Houston, Texas.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Yep. I didn't speak any French. Moved there as an 18-year-old and just got totally blown away by the city, living far, far away from my parents. It's a really special school. It's not for everyone. You have to be, very strong. You have to be very, it's a certain personality that's able to, I'm talking about from an American perspective because it's a completely international school.
Yeah.
But I think for Americans in particular who choose to stay there for 4 years, it's a certain personality.
What made you pick it?
I had done my international baccalaureate certificate in high school, and the AUP came to my high school specifically because it was an IB school, and they came, a bunch, every college came to my high school, but I was the only person in that meeting because nobody else was interested. So I asked a million questions, and I came home, and I didn't know where I wanted to go. Most of my friends had legacy, all their families had gone to the University of Texas. Mine wasn't interested in a big school. Didn't know, but also had no idea. I had no idea what I wanted. this presented itself and I went really gung-ho. I was like, came home, I was like, Dad, I'm going to AUP. And he's like, absolutely not. And my mom was like, yes, she is.
Well, the mom won that argument.
Yeah, exactly. And Mom came and visited me, I think, every semester. So, but anyways, and I have to say too, with so many things in my life, it just like worked out.
Yeah.
If I knew that if I hated it, I could go back to University of Texas, no problem, transfer back, be back in a safe area. But what I wanted to do was try. And I tried and I ended up loving it. And I discovered art history there. My first semester, I was actually taking a European studies class. So basically the history of Florence. And the last 2 weeks were only focused on art. And I was like, wow, I want to know everything about this.
I mean, you were in Paris, where they have amazing art collections, amazing museums, and I'm sure you went while you were there.
Of course, yeah.
So that must have had a big impact on you.
Absolutely. Paris was the classroom in Europe, actually in general, because we would take study trips elsewhere in Europe as well with art history classes, and it was like, I mean, I feel like I took full advantage of living there by studying art history and taking these study trips. And it was fundamental to not only how I see the world, obviously outside of art history, but it really is, it was a classroom in so many ways, just that whole experience.
Yeah. I feel like experiences like that, which are pretty unique to graduate school experiences, I mean, undergrad school, are critical.
Absolutely.
Because you're not going to learn that much in a classroom. I'm just going to be honest, because when I left college, I had no idea what I was doing and where I was going.
No.
So your unique experience with undergrad then led to your graduate school.
Yep.
And how did you decide? Well, you said that your professors did their PhDs and things like that. What made you want to go to New York?
I guess.
Did you just never want to go back to Texas?
Well, that was part of it, but no, that's not true. I guess I realized that this is the center of the industry, and I decided that this is my career, so it made sense to be here. But really, it was NYU. I had done several internships at MoMA and the Judd Foundation and Creative Time. And then
this is before you started your
grad school.
Okay.
Yeah. And then really dove in to grad school for 2 years. And then coming out of that, it was like, I want to stay here. How do I make this work? So
how did you come by the internships? Because I mean, interning at MoMA is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So how did you go from doing undergrad to those internships and then to graduate school?
I'm pretty hardcore about applying to stuff.
Yeah, that I know about you, yes.
So
was it just the luck of the draw? Did you know people who recommended you?
That was I mean, everything was luck of the draw. This is also the time when, so I graduated actually a semester early. So I was done December 08 from undergrad, and straight out of undergrad, I did an internship at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago in public programs.
Okay.
And I was like so tunnel visioned in working at a nonprofit. I did not want to work at a commercial space. And I really loved working in public programs because it activated an exhibition. It makes, the art come to life in a way that I don't think other outlets can. And, so anyways, I was really loved that internship, and I was dead set on doing education. And then every internship I applied for in New York City, they're giving me curatorial.
Okay.
So I kind of, it just happened. I was, at MoMA, I was in the formerly Princeton Illustrated Books department. That whole department's been reorganized. It's now drawings and prints. But anyways, and at Creative Time, I was also in curatorial. and at Judd Foundation I was doing mostly research, but anyways, it's funny how these things just happen, even though I wasn't asking. Like on the MoMA application, it was like, rank the different departments 1 through, I don't know, 3 of what you want first. And I put education, and then curatorial is probably like number 3. And yet I got the curatorial.
Very random. And these are all unpaid internships.
All unpaid, which is another issue. There's lots of barriers to entrance in this field.
100%.
And things have absolutely changed in the 15 years since I was an unpaid intern, but those positions are still not well paid and probably not a livable wage in New York City.
Not in New York, no.
So, entering this world, or the art world, is difficult for a lot of reasons. We have to contend again. If you there's a lot of nepotism.
Yes.
There's a lot of elitism. Did you go to NYU? Did you go to Christie's? Did you go to, it's like all these things you need to check off.
Yeah.
Did you study art history, or did you study something else? So there's even a hierarchy within this world, which is,
100%.
completely stupid.
And it's crazy because some positions, like especially for curators, like you need a PhD and the wage is like set at 0, basically.
Exactly.
And it's like you have like these high expectations with like this kind of low value that you're setting for it. It's so strange.
Yeah. And it's a multi-billion-dollar market, and yet there's no real job creation. Yeah. Especially, museums are really going through a moment right now.
Oh, yeah.
But, and there's currently like a mass exodus of workers from museums.
I saw it to galleries.
Shifting to museums.
Especially like curatorial. And staff.
People want livable wages, and also galleries have a flexibility to create positions without, bureaucracy, without...
but also galleries now are putting on museum quality shows.
Absolutely.
So I see the why curators from a museum would want to shift to gallery. Not only are you getting paid better, but you're also getting to work without all the red bureaucratic tape.
Exactly. Yeah. So I totally understand that. And I think it's good for everybody, honestly, because again, when I came out of undergrad, I was laser focused. I thought nonprofits were like more noble, more ethical.
Boy, do you learn fast. That's so true.
Boy, that was like my bright-eyed optimism, my idealistic phase.
Listen, we all go through it.
And then you realize when you're not getting paid that, hey, maybe there's something funny about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's... What was your question?
No, I think we're
answer the question?
Yes, we're on the right path.
Yeah.
So now you've done these unpaid internships. You were now laser focused in education.
Yeah.
And then you went to do your grad school.
Yeah. Which I loved.
And you said it was 2 years.
2 years.
Okay. Did you feel like your graduate school prepared you better than your undergrad in terms of your No?
Absolutely not. In fact, I think it almost... Well, I also have to say that coming out of undergrad, I knew that I wanted a graduate degree. I knew I wanted to keep learning. And so that...
But you took that break.
Yes.
So
yes, I knew I wanted to take a break.
Okay.
I didn't want to get... A lot of people go straight into a master's program. I knew I wanted to get experience, fuck around.
Yeah.
Live in South Williamsburg.
Fair.
Dude, Anyways, so I knew 2 years is the perfect amount of time to be away from school. And did NYU... the IFA is its own world in so many ways. It's competitive. It's rigorous. It's an ivory tower. And if you are certain professors there can connect you to getting a job because of their own personal connections or their own interests, scholarly interests and connections, but the vast majority do not.
Okay.
And this is precisely why I am on the board, the alumni board. It is my personal mission I want to create an outlet for current students and recent alums to have that will show you, and working with other alum for outlets like this, how did you do what you're doing? What are you doing? Really create. We're doing job talks and we're doing on-site visits for programming. So I really want the Alumni Association to be an outlet for career development.
Which I feel like
there's
is essential.
There's no, and I'm not saying this, it's like this is what Alumni Association should do. Yes. In my view. Yeah. Because the academics aren't going to do it. No. We know, and that, nor should they. Yeah. But there has to be, it's an obligation, I think, for every school that is charging
an exorbitant amount of money
to have a pathway for graduates.
I 100% agree, because when I left school, they just kind of threw me into the world. Yep. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll just figure it out on my own.
And we all do. Yeah. But as I asked earlier, it's like, I wonder how many students from both of our, graduates from both of our programs, what they end up doing. I would love to know how many people actually are, quote unquote, using their degree or still in the field, in the industry.
I literally know 2 people that I'm still in touch with from my undergrad school. We did the same art history type of thing. One of them is now, I think, or used to work for Google. Wow. And went into marketing. She was in the arts for a while, and then she kind of segued that way. And then another one went into e-commerce somehow. Huh. Yeah, very random. But I feel like if the art world isn't for everybody, it's not. You really have to be passionate about what you do. Yeah. Because like you mentioned, there are so many glass ceilings and everything and hoops that you need to jump through. Yep. Some of us are luckier than others. Some people obviously just, come from different backgrounds, so it's easier for them. But if you're coming from a background where you don't have parents who are in the art world or can kind of lead you there, you're kind of on your own.
And also parents or other family members or friends who can financially support you.
100%.
Because, I'll be honest, I was living off my parents, obviously, when I was making $0 from MoMA, from interning at MoMA, 40 hours a week. Yeah. But that was an opportunity that I didn't want to miss. And I also have the privilege of having parents who were willing to support me financially through that.
And I think that's important for people to understand. Yeah. You need some sort of backing. Yeah. Or be prepared to be on your own doing this.
And it's a shame, because I think if the industry could simply fix the living wage issue, so many other candidates would be coming through the doors. Yeah.
There would be so much more diversity too.
So that's exactly what I mean. More diversity, different backgrounds, but it's all kind of connected, right? Yeah. They want, the industry thrives off of this exclusivity. Yes. And being, elite and opaque. Yeah. That's the whole thing.
That's the whole charm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until you get to work in, and then you're like, it's not so charming anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're now postgraduate school. And you're still kind of well, I'm not really ready for the professional world. Yeah. So how did you get into the professional world?
So I was applying to every single job posting.
And what was this on, NIFA or alumni?
I found the first job at CDS Gallery through the NYU job posting website. That must still exist. But it was thousands of jobs. It was most, from every sector of all industries. but I was able to filter it to like art related stuff.
Okay.
Anyways, I was looking at every outlet I could because again, I was determined to stay here, and I also had it in the back of my head. I was like, you have to pay your own bills. You have to pay your own bills.
Now it's the real world.
Yeah, now it's the real world. So I started this job at CDS Gallery, and then I was also, that was Monday through Thursday and not enough money. So then I also started working coat check and visitor services at the Morgan Library.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So that's how you eventually got to the Morgan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was doing that at the same time. And which was fun because I got my museum badge, and that got me into every museum for free.
Mm-hmm.
Huge perk.
Very.
Even they paid me terribly. But I look back and I think that was like $10 an hour. I was like, what was I doing? But that badge, because I go to openings and see every show, and like that's part of my
Networking was also obviously
absolutely. So having that badge like really saved a lot of money in the end. But anyways, so working at CDS, that was my first job, my first commercial job. And I was like, why does this artwork have so many different values?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I started taking the appraisal courses at NYU, which now I was like one of the last people to graduate from that. It's now run by the Appraisers Association, those classes, but they formally ended the relationship with NYU. But that's where I figured out a certain angle of the market. Is like, oh yes, one artwork can have all these different values for all of these different reasons.
Mm-hmm. I think that's like one
really
of the most interesting, actually, that I find most interesting about appraising in artworks, because also a lot of people ask me, they're like, how do people come up with these prices? Like, do you just like pull them out of thin air? No, there's, sometimes. But no, there's actually like thought behind it, like, you know, going through previous auction records, like values of art, like there's so much to it. So maybe you can kind of like tell us a little bit about the appraising aspect.
Sure. So an appraisal is done for a specific purpose. So if you are donating an artwork to a museum, that's a certain type of value, it's a certain type of report that will be given. Insurance, that's another type of value. It's going to be higher than a fair market value. It's going to be retail replacement, and that is a different type of report that's presented to the client. You know, now it's getting more, appraising is an interesting field. It's getting wider as people have these assets and they have different uses for that asset. So where was I going? What was your question?
Just to kind of give it how does the value, like how do you determine the value of an artwork essentially?
So you're going to be looking at primary and secondary sales. So a primary sale is work that's never been sold before. And it's, you know, Pace Gallery represents Loewy Hollowell. How much is a Loewy Hollowell work that Pace sells that's brand new, straight out of the studio, versus you own a Loewy Hollowell and you want to sell it to me. So it's the second time it's been sold, or third or fourth or whatever. And usually prices go up. Sometimes they don't. So, or are they flat? Did a Loewy Hollowell work that was at Sotheby's not sell? Why did it not sell? So all of these things are really interesting. Was the market, you know, did nobody want to buy in that Sotheby's sales because the estimate was too high? Or, you know, maybe her collector base was at some small auction house in Europe, and her collector base didn't even know the auction was happening. There's a million reasons why a work could not sell at auction. But the thing is that it's easy to get auction records. It's not as easy to get primary sale information.
Oh, yeah.
So this is why it's important to go to openings and see things in person, because in New York State, every gallery has to have a price list.
Mm-hmm. But then, I mean, what if you sell to, somebody for like 10% discount, or like, there's all these little...
So you can get the price list, and in an appraisal report, you would be saying, this is the asking price, and it is customary that a 10 to 20% discount could be given. So you're basically just acknowledging it.
Mm-hmm.
That discounts are pretty much standard in the industry.
Yeah.
Honestly, not for everything, but I would say in general, a 10 to 20% discount is standard. And so in an appraisal, you just need to write that out.
Yeah.
You're just going to still put the asking price from the gallery. But yeah, I mean, who gets the discount?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who gets the discount?
Who qualifies for the discount?
Exactly. Is that arbitrary?
Is it, again, part of like the elitism? Oh, we're only going to give it to a real collector?
Yeah.
Or,
and what's a real collector?
Yeah. And all this like placement of artworks with certain collections and institutions,
Right, because now at this point, like I said, galleries would prefer things to go to a museum, and then it's the collectors. And how do you rate the collectors? Yeah. Like, what do you? Yeah. Obviously,
or
there's
a collector who's guaranteed to donate it to a museum.
Right.
Eventually. I've seen that written into contracts. It's like, okay.
Or like contracts that say you can't buy a work and then flip it in like a certain amount of time.
Exactly. And that's also that's really to protect the artist.
Yeah.
Because it's not fair.
Yeah. You don't want to ruin their market, especially early on in their career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And also the artist doesn't get any money they only get money from the first sale.
You're right.
They don't get money from secondary sales.
Yeah. Which is also a very strange thing.
Yeah.
Like how much would it suck if you're like an artist and then you just sold your artwork for, let's say, like 30 grand at a show, and then next year like your work goes up at Christie's and it sells for $1.5 million.
Exactly.
And you don't see anything from that.
That's got to be soul crushing.
Yeah.
And then when I see that, it's like, what are we valuing as a culture, as a society? What about that $30,000 painting last year makes it $1.5 million this year? I
think that's what people don't really understand. Is like this haze and this mysteriousness of like why these prices are like the way that they are.
Right.
But I mean, there's like so much stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so many deals, and like it's like a puppet show.
It totally is. And historically, collecting was connoisseurship. Collectors even up to 30 years ago, and I will say Nancy and Giorgio, they collect because they are deeply invested in this art. Art historically, they're connoisseurs of post-war and contemporary art,
100%.
Italian art, and the collectors have changed. It's more about financial interest.
Yeah, now art is an asset class. So.
Absolutely. So I think that's probably the most devastating part of collecting, having moved away from connoisseurship and into financial interest.
Right.
So when people say, should I buy this work? The first thing I ask is, why do you want to buy it?
Yeah.
Is it because you love the painting, you feel connected to it? Or because you think in 5 years, it'll be worth 5 times what you buy it for?
Yeah.
Those are two different things.
Yeah.
They can be related, but to me, they're two different things.
Yeah. Very rarely are those two things related in a single human being. Most people are really divided. I mean, there's the lucky few, like, and I'll say Nancy and Giorgio because they do collect for the love of the art, where obviously then their collection appreciates in value simply because of the connoisseurship aspect of it, because they're great at picking the art that they also very much love.
Yeah.
So in that respect, yes, their collection goes up in value. But again, two different things.
Two different things that can overlap, but don't always do.
Yeah.
And, you know, and people really only see the headlines of like the $50 million Jeff Koons balloons, the $150, you know, Picasso painting. That's such a small fraction. They're huge numbers, but it's a handful of artworks can sell for that much.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the mid-tier galleries, I mean, they're the real heroes of the industry.
Honestly, I don't know how they stay open.
I don't know how they
for as
stay
long as
open.
they do.
Yeah.
So the first gallery that you worked for, it eventually closed, or
Yeah.
So now you're in this gallery and you're really interested in like appraisals and things like that. Where do you go from there?
From there I went to Michael Rosenfeld, and I was there for a year, and
that's another commercial gallery.
Yes, in Chelsea. Yep, on 19th Street in Chelsea. And Michael focuses on 20th century American art, really a focus on Black art from the early 20th century and women artists, so expanding the American art canon. I was doing a lot of research there, and I was writing the fact sheets.
So you were a registrar at this point?
No. My title is senior associate.
Okay.
Which, you know.
So that's technically more in sales, right?
So I was
For a
writing
gallery?
all of the contracts, so invoices, loan agreements, consignment agreements, on approval, all of that. And then I was also, voraciously buying inventory. So
was he dealing mostly in primary sales or secondary as well?
Oh, secondary.
Okay.
So 20th century, it was like he did represent a few living artists, but mostly secondary. And so actively buying, and so all those works that were coming in needed fact sheets, research on exhibition history, publication history, and so that was a big part of my job. So really from there, I had collection management experience, but it really I feel like it became a registrar at Magazino.
Yeah. I mean, yes, you literally were just thrown into like the craziest situation because most people don't get that opportunity, especially early on in their career to like manage not only their personal collection, but then essentially what will become the museum's collection.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the artworks that you're dealing with are crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where my conservation background really came in with working with Arte Povera. As you said, it's quote unquote poor materials, but it's everyday materials from like literally going through the
inventory in your
sticks. You know, Mari Mert sticks and leaves.
Cunell's coffee.
To even wax, a lot of wax, metals, like I'm blanking. What's piombo? Lead.
Lead.
It came to me in Italian. I love that.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, why are you using Italian words? I'm like, yes, lead.
Lead, candles, rags, of course, Michelangelo Pistoletto. So having to, seeing all of this was really a crash course in post-war and contemporary materials, really.
Yeah. And you got to work directly with the collectors.
Yeah. Which I loved. I really enjoyed working with Nancy and Giorgio. It taught me a lot. I'd interned in museums, worked for galleries, and then the third part of this is really the collectors, and they're so important now in today's art world. And having that connection was really amazing. You finally get to see. It was kind of like a aha moment where it's like, oh, this is why everything is this way.
I wonder if it would have been different for you to go from Michael Rosenfeld to then working with let's say, collectors who are one of the ones who like buy and then just put all their artworks in storage until they appreciate in value and then go to auction?
Right. No, I mean, I'm so happy that Nancy and Georgia are like true collectors and we're building this space to share their collection with the public.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who does that?
And especially in the United States, that's the first institution dedicated to works like that. Like that was the first time where I've seen some of these works in person ever.
Yeah,
I mean, I've learned about it in textbooks, obviously, in art history, but that was the first time I've seen them in the United States.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess I'd seen a lot. It used to be a Mario merch room at the Pompidou. So I'd seen it in my undergrad and then completely forgot about it. And I only knew,
in Europe.
Yeah, being in Europe.
Yeah.
But it was really only Mario merch. Gosh, that might have been it.
Yeah.
Oh, and Cunellis, definitely Cunellis. But that, I mean, certainly not the whole, and Boetti, but not the full spectrum of it all. So, yeah.
So now take in mind because like me and you started relatively at the same time, we're now working for this private museum, which later becomes a foundation. But it's like we're literally watching the building being built by the architect. Then we're putting the art in there, and then we're essentially opening up this institution to the public. It was like the wildest thing. I mean, even for me, because this was like one of my biggest projects that I worked on as well. So, I mean, it was just, and then now seeing it obviously grow as it has. But so you were at Magazino for how many years?
Almost 5.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, 4.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was then your longest job, longest consecutive job to date.
Yep. And I was ready to move on. I feel like I'd learned everything that I could there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got headhunted.
Yeah, well, at that point, you had a great experience.
Yeah. So a firm, Sophie McPherson, had reached out to me about...
I love Sophie McPherson. I've worked with them when I was living in London.
Yeah, they're great. Very professional. And one of the only art headhunting firms, there's very few.
Yeah.
So...
They actually do great placements.
Yeah, they do great placements.
Yeah.
And so they reached out to me about this position at Pace, and I was nervous for 2 reasons. Number one, Pace is a huge institution that I was a little intimidated by.
To be fair, yes.
And number two, they had just gotten really terrible press. I think it was fall 2020, about it being a toxic work environment. And, so I of course asked about this ArtNet article. And
to be fair, in all of my experiences, there are very, very few places that are not toxic to work at in the art world.
Exactly.
So it just depends on your level of toxicity.
Totally. I'm going to be professional and not name the places on my resume that were particularly toxic.
Fair.
But absolutely, it's part of working in this environment where you're also getting paid nothing and not having your work recognized because the person whose name is on the door or is at the top, it's always the director that gets recognized or the curator and never the registrar.
100%.
Even though, the curator or the director will say like, this industry, runs on the registrars. It's like, I know, because we have an extreme level, we have to pay attention to every single detail.
Yeah.
We can't let things fall through the cracks. And it's like, well, why can't you recognize us? Like, just pay us more.
Yeah. No, I mean,
pay us more.
I've had this conversation with a lot of people where I feel like there's so many people behind the scenes that are the true pillars of any, whether it's a museum, gallery, whatever it may be. And then there's the one little, the roof that you put on the house and that gets all the recognition because it's right at the top. But then the foundation is all these individuals who are making these wheels turn.
Totally.
And without them, you have nothing.
Exactly. I also kind of compare it to a restaurant industry where it's front of house versus back of house.
Oh, yeah.
Where anybody who's front facing gets all of the credit, but it's like you rely on the back of house is literally doing all of the work.
Yeah.
And so I wish particularly registrars and collection managers could get the recognition in our industry that we so well deserve. I don't know how to make that happen. I
call
think
registrars, proprietors, and art installers the unsung heroes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you guys literally pull, like, especially when you're installing an exhibition that then goes on view, everything is done by that department.
Exactly. I think part of it is just talking more about it. People don't know what registrars do.
They
so
don't.
That's like number one.
Yeah.
Like my number one mission is to like get people to know what I actually do.
Fair.
So, because an artwork hanging on a wall didn't get there by chance.
Exactly.
There's so much behind it. It's the shipping, it's the insurance, it's the physical handling. And who organizes all of that is the registrar.
Exactly.
So
now you're heading to Pace. You got headhunted by Sophie McPherson.
Yep.
And then you did the whole interview.
Did the whole interview.
How many interviews did you have before you got the job?
Honestly, one.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great.
Yeah, it was great. Was it just one? Yeah, it was just one. And my manager now is unbelievable. She's been at Pace for like almost 30 years.
Wow.
Knows everything. Is generous with her time. Like she is a pillar of Pace. And I know that Mark and Arnie know that.
I'm sure they do. I mean, if she's been there for 30 years.
They do. They're one of the people. She's one of the people that they like actually know.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And they rely on her tremendously. But she manages the global insurance policy, which is unbelievable. I mean, just
because how many outlets do
dollars.
you have now for Pace?
We are in New York, of course, LA, Hong Kong, Seoul, Geneva, London, and later this year we're opening Tokyo.
Wow. Also a lot of Asia spaces.
Yeah. We were the first big gallery to open in 2008 in Beijing, which coincided with the Olympics. And then Beijing got a little weird.
Yeah, I don't know many galleries who are really there anymore.
With all of the Trump, it's really hard to import artwork into China, or more difficult than it was in 2008. Let's put it that way. And then, so that's why we're in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And Seoul. We expanded our Seoul space in 2021. So.
And you work with the New York branch.
I work with the New York branch, but I'm actually the quote unquote international liaison.
Wow, look at you.
Of course, New York is the headquarters, but everything basically flows through New York. So I'm the point person for all of the external galleries.
Okay. So what do you do at Pace now?
What do I do at Pace now? I would say I spend a lot of time physically condition checking artworks. It's a main responsibility of the registrar team. We have to have an incoming inspection of property as it comes in for insurance purposes. And then we always want to check it before it gets released to a client, gets a label, one final check, make sure it's in the condition it needs to be in when it gets released to the client. But anytime it moves, a condition check should be happening just to make sure it is in good condition.
What about artworks that you get directly from the artist studio?
We do that as well.
Okay.
Because if it gets damaged in the next move, we want to come to the insurance company and say, here's what it looks like on this date. Damage happened on this date. We did our due diligence and examined it when it came in and that's when the insurance kicks, is as soon as it comes to us. upon safe receipt at a Pace location. And so we need to have, if anything happens, we need to have all of this on record.
Yeah.
So images and like a written statement of its condition.
Okay, so I feel like now you've come into your full registrar glory.
Yes. So a lot of condition checks. So I spend time at our warehouse in Midtown, and also we have a big warehouse out in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So doing checks there, and then I work with several different offices, sales teams in New York as well. So write it, if they have a secondary market work coming in, I'll prepare the consignment agreement for that. A lot of loans going out all the time. Pace is very generous with lending out artworks to all types of institutions. Also outgoing consignment agreements to other galleries that might want to sell our artworks. So a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
And then the third big thing that I do is exhibition installations. So we rotate our shows like every 6 to 8 weeks, and I am involved in overseeing the installations.
What's one of the shows that you worked on at Pace that was kind of maybe like the most difficult or rewarding or like something crazy?
I really like the show that's up right now that I worked on basically since October, and we installed it in January, which was kind of unusual. So the artist is Meek Dejima. She's incredible. She's brilliant. She's so kind, so nice, and makes amazing artwork. Like, you can't ask for more.
I mean, that's the trifecta.
Yeah. And so her studio's in Brooklyn, and so not far, but this is the first time she's making her negative entropy works on like grand scale. And I'm blanking on the exact dimensions, but they're probably like 13 feet tall and like 15 feet wide. No. Anyways, they're large.
Huge.
So, she'd been working on this project since, I think she said 2020, thinking about these in grand scale, because the other ones she makes are more on manageable size of like 5 feet tall by like 4 feet wide. So, not that big, but the surfaces are woven. So it's a tapestry that's then mounted to a board and framed.
Okay.
And so she's thinking about doing this in this huge scale. And it's like, okay, how do you mount the tapestry? Right. And then how do you frame it?
Yeah.
So she figured it out, but we stretched these on site at the warehouse, and it was an involved process.
I was going to ask, I'm like, did you stretch them at the warehouse or in the gallery?
At the warehouse. And the stretchers are collapsible, they're foldable. And so it was a process of really, it was great to see how she works, because she and her studio were there and they were trying different things, and they were, okay, if that doesn't work, let's try something else. And then, I was there really just as like, let me know if you need anything. And also documenting the whole process of like, this is how these works are assembled, because if and when they sell, the client that we sell it to is going to have to do this whole process.
Right.
Yeah.
So now when you have like these large scale works, and somebody buys them from the show, how do you then, does the client have other people come in and have it installed? Does Pace do that for them?
Good question. And it kind of relates to what we were saying before, like who gets a discount?
Yeah.
Who gets the full scale treatment? I think if it was locally to a good client, like a, reliable client that's purchased many artworks at Pace, we would probably send the studio.
Okay.
Let's say the client is in Shanghai. We would ship the artwork there, and then we would provide an installation packet. And these works in particular, the installation packet's going to be very involved because there's a lot of hardware from the stretchers and the frames. We don't want any of that to get confused. So this would be a pretty involved installation packet.
Have you worked with a lot of clients in their homes?
No. Other offices do. It is a like, especially if we sell like a huge Nara outdoor sculpture, we're going to be involved in that, making sure it's in the right location. It isn't installed properly on their lawn. Because again, part of customer service, I think, is, making sure that the artwork is cared for even after it's installed. So giving them, the right recommendations for how to wax or clean a sculpture that they can do themselves, like a Linda Bangless bronze, etc. So like I haven't been involved on site, but it's certainly part of our customer service that we provide is general long-term care for an artwork.
Okay, great. I was also going to ask you, because I know when you were at Magazino, I think you traveled with a couple of artworks.
Yeah.
If you could tell us a little bit about that, because that's obviously something that you've done.
A big perk of being a registrar is being able to travel either with the artwork on the plane, which I haven't done, but I have overseen installations at other locations, which was really cool. Great perk.
So I know for Magazino, I think you went to, was it Denmark?
Denmark, yep. And also Bilbao.
Yeah.
With the Fontana, the show that was here at the Met, traveled to the Guggenheim in Bilbao. So I was able to go for that installation.
And now, as the registrar, what was kind of your role there?
Again,
with this artwork?
Checking the condition of the artworks, make sure they arrived safely. And then in Denmark in particular, the Italian installers met me there. So making sure everything was installed properly, handled properly. I remember, is it the Calzolari that had the candles? Yeah. They're they float. It's a piece, it installs on the wall. It's salt, no?
I think so.
And then there's a tray at the bottom and votive candles float in oil. And the guys were like, okay, we're done. So I'm walking through all the galleries, making sure everything's right. And I was like, where are the candles? And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, where are they? And they hadn't even opened that crate.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, okay, I'm really glad I came for this installation for this one purpose. And that's what I mean by having a registrar really know a collection of works, because I've known that work. It was installed in Nancy and Georgia's house. It was on view at Magazino, and now it was on view at a Danish museum. It's like, maybe that anybody else would have not
probably
recognized that. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, the installers didn't even open the crate where this tray was because they didn't think it was important or whatever. And that's what I mean, really having a deep familiarity with artworks is it's so important.
Yeah. There's also an amazing film or interview that you did with Installing Magazino, which is on Magazino's website, which kind of gives behind the scenes of what it takes to install an exhibition for those people who want to go out and actually see it, because I feel like people find it so fascinating. Yeah. The whole process and everything behind the scenes of what makes an exhibition an exhibition. Totally. Yeah. And
the thing about installing is you got to be flexible, because somebody is going to come in and be like, I don't like how that's hung. We're changing the whole show. Yeah. Even though you've done renderings, even though you've done virtual walkthroughs of the space, there is something to be said about seeing everything in person.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You're never going to space. Yeah, being in the space, having the artworks in front of you, uncrated, ready to be hung. So you got to be really flexible.
Yeah. Sometimes
everything could change
in one
second. Yeah. So, but that's the other thing about registrars is that we are flexible.
Yeah,
we understand.
You have to be, obviously. Yeah.
with all the personalities involved in an exhibition.
Oh my God. Yeah, from artists to curators to collectors, whoever you work with, everyone has their own little thing. Are there any exciting projects that you're looking forward to at Pace that are coming up?
Let's see. What's my next show? Of Dodine. And then, yes, we have a big Team Lab show coming up, which we've represented Team Lab for, I believe, this is our 10-year anniversary. Team Lab is a big artist collective in Japan, and they make digital artworks.
Oh.
So they are going to have like a big installation on 25th Street, and it's going to be really cool. It's an interactive piece. So,
awesome.
Yeah, the viewers, it will change as the viewers come into the space. It's really cool.
Awesome.
So I'll be up, I believe, early May, and then getting ready for the Tokyo opening. It's going to be pretty nuts.
When does it open?
I think we're aiming for like July 4th.
Okay.
There's an art fair around that same time. So we're going to do the art fair and the space opening, which is kind of insane, but also how we roll. So,
are you going to be going there in person?
I'm hoping to.
Okay.
I also, as the international liaison, I want to train that team of how, like, all of the external galleries, I don't know how to call them. We're almost a franchise, but not really.
Yeah.
The non-New York teams, all of them operate differently, but I'm trying to standardize at least the registrar practices. So I'm really hoping to go there to train. Fingers crossed. I would love to go to Tokyo.
My green flag at any institution is seeing how organized they are.
Yeah.
If they're a hot mess express, then like it's just going to be a war zone.
Yeah.
But like when you come in and everything, like there's like a set of practices, and then this is like the flow. Like it's so nice.
Yeah. Got to have all the protocol set out, all the handbooks. That's so important. So hopefully I'll be over there doing that.
All right. Well, fingers crossed. So now that we're wrapping up, do you have any sort of tips or anything that you want to offer listeners who might be kind of looking to becoming a registrar in the future?
Ooh. I am a member of ARCS, which is the Association of Registrar and Collection Specialists, and it's a great organization. It was founded, I think, 2013, so pretty recently. In one of their, hopes is to, let people expose what we do. expose, like tell people what we do. And you can get a student membership for, I think, very, very cheaply, and you get access to the whole network, upcoming events, networking events. Reach out to a registrar if you have access to one through your alumni association, or that's probably the best way, assuming that you studied art history, or assuming that you, if that, is an outlet for you, that's definitely a good way to go. But stay curious. I mean, reach out to as many people as you can. I remember being very intimidated by that, but I think people are more generous than you might think.
Yeah.
People love talking about themselves. So like, use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do I tell people? I think it's better to cast a wide net at the start of your career. Because again, I don't know if this was a mistake. Everything ended up working out. But having been so laser focused on wanting to work at a nonprofit, I don't know if that was to my advantage. So I think now, looking back, I should have cast a wide net and done different types of internships and had maybe a little bit more varied experience. I wonder what it would like. I think about Pace has our gallery assistants who are at the, front of house. They're at the front desks. I'm like, I wonder what I would have been, what would have my career been if I had started that out of undergrad or graduate school? I would have been paid. Yeah, and I would have been paid.
Yeah, exactly.
And I hate saying do an internship. Do you think that's still the way to get a job? I don't even know. You know, we're from a
different time.
I know, which it feels like a different time because so much has changed.
Yeah. I don't know.
In the last 10, 15 years, but is that still the way to do it?
Maybe, especially if you're completely unaware of what you want to be or what sector you want to be. Maybe having different internship experiences might be useful. And at least now they're getting paid. Unlike when we were back in the day when we were just literally working for nothing. Experience, exposure.
Yeah. So glad to have all that unpaid work on my resume.
I know.
Yeah.
Do you still put internships on your resume?
They're on my LinkedIn page, but no.
Yeah, same.
No.
Yeah, I kept them on my LinkedIn, but I took them off my resume. Yeah. I'm too deep in now.
I know, right? It's not even, it's not relevant.
Yeah, it's not. But obviously for people just starting out, it would make sense.
Totally. And I think it's good to do it while you're still a student.
Yes.
Because at least it makes sense to get paid that little.
Yes.
While you're still a student. And they're only 2 days a week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so funny. Are internships still a thing?
I think so. I see them all the time.
Yeah. They're still posted.
Yeah. So I'm sure they are. I mean, I think doing an internship, especially if you're confused, might be a good way.
Yeah.
But now for the final section, we're going to do the fire round.
Yay.
So I'm going to ask you to pick a number between 1 and 7. And then I'm going to ask, maybe we can try to make 3 questions. Okay. So you're going to pick 3 numbers between 1 and 7. And then I'll ask you the corresponding question. And then you'll let me know how you feel.
All right.
What's your first one?
Let's do number 1.
Okay. Wow. Name an artist you admire.
An artist I admire. Ooh, admire. I don't know a lot of artists personally. But, okay, an artist I admire, who pick and paste artist here, and I work with her pretty closely. Her name's Kylie Manning. Mm-hmm. She's also based in Brooklyn. And she's a painter, and I'm a painting lover.
Okay.
I just love painting, and more specifically, I love figurative painting. And she's somewhere in between figurative and abstract. I do believe she identifies as a figurative painter. But what I admire about her is that even in the year 2024, she paints like an old master. So
nice.
She stretches her linen. She uses linen, which is just the finest. She uses linen. She has someone who builds her stretchers. She stretches the linen. She uses rabbit skin glue. She's mixing pigment and linseed oil. And the whole process is so beautiful. Mm-hmm. What she produces is so beautiful. It's unlike any other painter on Pace's roster. They take you to another place. They are so, so beautiful. And I admire her process. She's so thoughtful. She's so smart as well. And she's another like Mika. She's intellectual. I kind of have a girl crush on both of them. And they produce absolutely beautiful work. And again, that's so hard to find in an artist.
100%.
But I just really respect the tradition that Kylie's continuing in a world that wants you to move so quickly. She's moving slowly because there's material that doesn't dry overnight.
No, not at all.
That linseed oil does not dry overnight. So I really respect her process and all the beauty she's creating as a result.
Yeah, I was in Amsterdam, I think, oh my God, what year? Last year. Uh-huh. And I took this tour and they were showing you how to physically like paints were made like in the windmills, and then how artists would mix them with linseed oil and like the pigment and everything. And it was just such an incredible thing to see because of how meticulous it is, and how much time goes into it, and what a kind of eye you need to have to get the right proportions and ratios and everything to get the right color that you need. It's incredible.
And her palette is unbelievable. It's the richest colors. It's just like, they're just such beautiful works. Her show opens in Hong Kong in March, and then hopefully I think she's having finally a New York show at Pace 2025, which sounds really far away but is actually next year.
Yeah, literally. And also like galleries and museums in general, like think years in advance. And I know galleries must think
we're definitely like, we have so many artists that will be, we have to slot them. Yeah. So it's not as, it's unlike a museum in the sense, because museums need loans, right? So they have to be thinking about that. Our inventory is coming from our artists, so it's slightly different. So we don't have, we like, draw out the programming of who's going to have what slot when, but we're not thinking about what work specifically will be in there.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So pick another number.
Let's go 4.
4. What is a passion project you want to complete? And this can either be professional or personal.
Good question. I really want to do more appraisals.
Okay.
So I'm now an accredited member of the Appraisal Association of America, Appraisers Association, excuse me, of America, and I want to do it more.
Okay.
I've had a couple of projects, and I really want to go pretty hardcore into that.
Nice.
For more money, of course, but more income. But also, I really think it's interesting work. I get to do a lot of research, writing, learn the market better. So
yeah, it's always good to sharpen your skills and educate yourself more.
Absolutely. So now I feel like as an accredited member, I can do more, and I'm ready for it. So,
good.
If anybody out there needs an appraisal,
right, Gabriella, I actually have to ask you to appraise a couple of things, so I'm going to be reaching out to you.
Okay, feel free to let me know.
Yeah. And final question.
Let's go 3.
Okay. If you could talk to anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
I mean, obviously my grandma. I'm wearing 2 of her necklaces.
I was wondering what the keys were for.
My grandma Carla. They're both her. Actually, all of these were hers. But I guess from an art world perspective.
Yeah, like is there like a curator, artist, anybody whose brain you want to pick?
Maybe I would ask Leonardo da Vinci if he actually painted Salvator Mundi.
Oh my God. The mystery continues.
Is this actually your work, Leonardo? I don't know.
Somebody asked me about that work actually like 2 weeks ago, and they're like, do you think it's real? And I was like, I don't know. Honestly, I'm more on the no side, but
I'm also on the no side. Or at least it's been so heavily restored over all the years. But again, this is what I was saying earlier. It's like, what are we valuing here?
Right.
Are we valuing Leonardo da Vinci, a work by Leonardo da Vinci? Are we valuing an object that has been around for 500 years? Are we, and it's now the highest painting, highest selling art object of all time.
Yeah.
So what are we really valuing here? And that's what I would love to ask him. Like, he would have never understood these prices.
No. I mean, he was like that was a time of patrons where you basically worked on commission for like a wealthy person. They're like, here, paint this painting for me for this amount of money.
Yeah.
So totally different system. But
totally different system.
I read an article the other day, and they said that an artwork actually gains value when there's like some sort of shroud of mystery, or if it's like been stolen and then returned.
Yeah.
And I feel like that also added, and they were just talking about the Mona Lisa and that how, her being stolen and like, and all this like mystery surrounding, is she smiling? Is she like all this like stuff? basically is what also fed into the value of that
So
artwork in
crazy.
particular.
Well, and then you're also valuing all of the merchandise that it produces.
Oh yeah.
Damn. Yeah. I would like to ask Leonardo da Vinci that.
I want to know the answers to that too, honestly. That's a good one.
Did you paint this?
Yeah.
Do you even remember?
Is this even? Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me on the Art Pod. You gave us a lot of pearls of wisdom, so thank you for that. And for anybody who watches this or listens, I just want to say that if you have any further questions or want to get in touch with Gabriella, let me know.
Yep.
I want this to be an open network for people to speak to each other, or if they have further questions and things like that.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on.
Always happy to answer more questions, especially to budding registrars in the field.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.